We often hear of powerful, charismatic figures who have wreaked havoc on countless lives behind closed doors. But what happens when that influence turns into something darker, something that twists minds and destroys spirits? Today we dive deep into the chilling story of Lawrence Larry Ray, a man who exploited and manipulated college students, turning their lives into a nightmare. Larry Ray wasn't always the notorious figure he is known as today. Born in Brooklyn, New York, he built a web of connections that would later enable his abuse of power. While he claimed to be involved in various business ventures and boasted of high-level political connections, his life was filled with manipulation and deception. Friends would eventually describe him as charming but disturbing, a man who seemed to leave destruction in his wake wherever he went. But Larry wasn't just a con man. His actions were calculated, and he preyed on those he felt were vulnerable. As his life became more turbulent, he faced legal and financial troubles. In 2010, this led him to seek refuge in an unexpected place: his daughter Talia's dorm room at Sarah Lawrence College. When Larry moved into his daughter's college dorm, the students initially saw him as a strange but interesting figure, a father willing to cook for them, give advice, and share his experiences. His charismatic personality quickly drew people in. Larry began to see his daughter's friends as potential pawns, students who were smart but at a stage in their lives where they were still figuring things out. He quickly began testing their boundaries, building trust, while subtly gaining control. In these early interactions, Larry's tactics were less obvious, but still strategic. He recognized their insecurities, offered himself as a mentor, and slowly introduced doubt and dependency. Students who once felt confident and independent began to feel isolated and emotionally dependent on him. As the months turned into years, Larry's influence grew. He held grueling therapy sessions in the dorm, convincing students that they were broken, damaged, and in need of his guidance. His tactics were meticulously designed to break them down, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Students were subjected to verbal abuse, manipulation, and relentless questioning that made them feel as if they were spiraling out of control without him. One of the darkest aspects of Larry's manipulation was his ability to distort reality. He would record forced confessions in which students would admit to things they hadn't done. These confessions were kept as leverage, a psychological trap that kept them under his control. The students, some of whom were once confident and ambitious, were now trapped in a world where they were constantly under Larry's thumb. Larry's control wasn't just about power, it was also about profit. He forced some of the students into exploitative situations, some even into prostitution. For others, he created massive financial debt by convincing them that they owed him money for help or treatment. Students who had once been high achievers with bright futures now found themselves financially dependent on Larry and unable to escape. To maintain his hold, Larry used violent threats and psychological intimidation. There were reports that he threatened to harm those who disobeyed him. He held them emotionally and financially captive, convincing them that they had no life outside of him. After nearly a decade of suffering under Larry's control, a few brave students finally began to break their silence. The first major report came from a magazine article that exposed the shocking reality of life under Larry's rule. The story sparked a police investigation that eventually led to Larry's arrest. His trial would reveal disturbing details of abuse, control, and manipulation few could have imagined. In 2022, Larry Ray was convicted on 15 counts, including sex trafficking, extortion, and racketeering. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison, a sentence that reflected the immense suffering he had caused. The judge praised the courage of his victims, whose bravery brought this nightmare to an end. The victims' stories are still haunting, and their recovery will take years. But their willingness to come forward has brought awareness to the insidious nature of manipulation and control. Since his conviction, Larry's story has sparked discussions on college campuses and beyond, raising questions about how predators can hide in plain sight. Documentaries, podcasts, and articles have explored Larry's twisted legacy, hoping to shed light on a case that seemed too surreal to be true. But for those who survived Larry's reign of terror, the scars are very real, a reminder of how easily influence can turn deadly in the wrong hands. So what can we learn from this case? Larry Ray's story is a reminder that abuse of power can happen anywhere, even in places that are supposed to be safe. As we look to the future, the question remains: how do we protect those who are vulnerable to such manipulation? How do we recognize the predators hiding behind the mask of kindness and charisma?